Scarlet Nexus, the new JRPG from Bandai Namco, the same people who brought you Code Vein and God Eater before that. Today, I've got something a bit special for you. We've actually been able to play the game a little early thanks to Bandai Namco giving us an early copy. Now, while this isn't a review, I do want to say I've been very impressed by both the mechanic and visual improvements in this game. The devs have come so far with this, and it's really good to see. So thank you to Bandai for this early look. Now let's talk about it. Scarlet Nexus has a lot going on. There's the companion system, which is even more in-depth now. There's the combat, which has so many aspects to talk about. The progression of the game with the brain map, the ally bonds, and more. Every time I feel like they've finished introducing core mechanics, they show me another, and it's a lot to keep track of all at once. So I thought a 10 things you need to know before you play will hopefully help you be a bit more prepared for it all. I'll start with the big boy, the combat, and I'm cheekily going to mention a bunch of things in this instead of just one. A familiar system you'll find in Scarlet Nexus is the brain crush mechanic. Effectively, this is a Sekiro-style posture system that you'll unlock very early in the game. Basically, you will break the posture in various ways, like targeting weak points or performing rush attacks until that yellow bar is depleted. From there, that'll be an insta-kill or huge damage against a boss with a satisfying animation that's also unique to every enemy type and whichever character you're playing. So quickly crushing different targets that are dangerous and getting them out of the fight is kind of key. On that note, shells. Lots of monsters have shells protecting areas of their bodies, and underneath are those weak points. So target shells with your basic attacks, or more importantly, object throws until it breaks, and then you can reap the reward by destroying the weak point. Brain drive is another mechanic that will unlock after a few hours of play, which will hype up your character during it. It's a period of time where you just deal more damage with basics, you can spam your telekinesis, and your movement will be even faster too. The big problem with it though, and something I'm not sure I like, is how I can't activate it manually. By dealing and taking damage, you build up the drive, and then it will just trigger the moment it's full. So you can't save it for a boss fight, unless maybe you're clever with how you avoid damaging enemies at the right time. A somewhat unsung hero of the combat has to be the uppercut attack. Obviously, this is meant to use against monsters that are in the air, get you up in the air to fight them. You can also use this to juggle enemies by launching them with that uppercut, which effectively CCs them while you bash them over and over in the air. And in a way, you're leaping up in the air, so it's also an evasion against low attacks. To do this, you just need to press melee and jump at the same time, and we can upgrade it in various ways later. Alright, one final combat tip that I want to say is about special objects, which you can use to do insta-kills instead of the normally thrown telekinetic attacks. These ones will take a bit more time to channel, but you can do things like send trains flying down tracks, or metal beams spinning, maybe slamming a container on an enemy just over and over. The main tip for this though is not any of that, it's how objects will often have elements inside of them, like maybe water. That can affect enemies, and if you pair an element with another, you can cause huge damage. Say covering an enemy in oil and then burning them with fire. But speaking of elements, that's going to be my second point. This may remind you of Genshin Impact, in which you can combine two elements together to deal extra damage to an enemy. This swings both ways in Scarlet Nexus. Fire enemies are going to burn you, dealing damage over time, and oil enemies might cover you in their goop, and that'll prevent you from dodging, which is very scary. Then, if these two hit you at the same time, that's an ouch. Thankfully though, we can use their own elements against them. If there's an electric enemy, there's a good chance that there's an object full of water nearby you can use against them. Or maybe use a companion ability with the right element. So building a party that's balanced to be able to deal with a variety of elements seems like that's going to be important later in the game. If you are affected by an element and want to avoid the incoming pain, then you can actually pop a normalization tablet, and this will remove the effect. These are found all over the place and can also be bought from the stores after you do unlock them. Moving on to the topic that I'm going to have to gush over then, the companions of these games just blow me away. Generally, I've always found ally AI to be invasive and annoying, even in the Souls series, and I would always avoid interacting or using them in all my games. Until Code Vein. There's just so many great aspects to the companions here. Like in Code Vein, they provided a lot of utility without being too invasive, right? Here, they're more key to the gameplay and feel incredible. Each companion comes with their own unique psychic abilities. In the case of these allies, it could be an element effect or a unique benefit to gameplay. Through the use of the SAS system, you can choose to activate their core ability to buff both of you up. At the bottom right, you can see the various colors and icons of the different allies, and these are abilities I can toggle on and off at will skill where relevant, actually able to preserve the amount I have left to use. There are generic ones like buffing my weapon with an element like electric or fire right, but then there's actually incredible ones like duplicate, where the ally suddenly has multiple versions of themselves to fight with, and then all of my psionic abilities are multiplied as well. My weapon has more versions and therefore is hitting more often on every attack, and when I throw an object, there's multiple objects coming in now for a huge crush of damage. There's stealth companions to cloak you, which will let you sneak around a boss to find a weak point easily, or perform a backstab for a burst of damage and crush damage as well. Maybe you need to reveal stealth enemies with the clairvoyance, which also lets you see through smoke and makes your perfect dodges easier to activate on top. There's a companion that gives you stone skin to ignore blows. There's the other main character who you'll play with at times who will enhance your own abilities, kind of doubling their power. So instead of being able to throw an object here or there, you can throw like 20 at once. Basically, there's a lot going on with the default abilities of your companions before we consider changing their loadout or improving their abilities through bonding. But you can micromanage them if you want, just going into the party option and then selecting how you want them to work. You can have them focus the same target as you, or always try to spread damage. Maybe you set them to be a healer, or just go focused on DPS. It's pretty solid. We can even manage their loadout with plugins to give them extra benefits too. It's just a good system that gets better as you go. But moving on, speaking of plugins, what are those? Plugins are basically chips that you can slot into your character for extra benefits. Whether it's defense, raw power increases, HP increases, XP gains, new effects, and more. They're definitely something you want to pay attention to as soon as possible because they get very powerful very quickly. There's ones that give you extra XP gains, so you probably want to slot those in the early game. To begin with, we will only have one plugin slot available out of a possible 3 that you can unlock later, but companions appear to have the same as well. Whichever companions you're playing with, you give them good ones too based on their combat style and how you've got them fighting. Now we should mention the progress system of the game, the brain map. It's a glorified skill tree that provides you with some interesting benefits that will provide you with more options as you go. It reminds me of like a Path of Exile skill tree that sprawls out from a starting point, but maybe not as extreme. So when you level up, you get brain points, you spend them on the brain map, and that brain map has 3 main paths to follow to begin with. Enhances like raw power, damage percent increases, speed of attacks, bigger psionic bar gauge, and so on. Expand skills are literally what it calls. It expands your skill set, unlocking new abilities like double jump, aerial movement, perfect dodge counterattacks, plunge attacks, more combos, better psionic attacks, and so on. So expand skills definitely makes the gameplay more in-depth, but a bit more complicated too. Support skills, on the other hand, are more passive benefits. Damage and defense when you're low health, faster restores, better XP per kill. You'll get more SAS activations, more money when you get kills. So it's up to you how you want to unlock your character and get new skills and get new benefits. But like I said, you'll unlock other paths as you go. It's not just these 3. Once you unlock the brain drive, you'll also unlock the brain drive upgrade skills. Next up then, an important place in the world, which is the hub, your main hideout for the game. These guys always seem to do this in their games. In God Eater, you're in a big tank. There's the bar in Code Vein, and now we have this hideout in Scarlet Nexus. It's a bit weird in here though compared to the others. It's very bare. It does serve a few important purposes though. Whenever you return here, you get a nice full HP restore, but more likely you come in here for the companions who hang out and you can interact with. Depending on what stage of the game you're at, they'll have important interactions for you ready. Like in Code Vein, you can give them gifts to improve bonds, which in turn unlocks better abilities when working with that character. These are very strong and very worth pursuing. Whenever you're ready to progress that bond, you can have bond episodes, becoming closer through missions or conversations. Basically, that's the threshold that you need to reach, and then you have a bond episode and progress the bond with them. I'm going to be looking into how this works properly though. I want to see if you can focus bonds with specific characters to get early game perks. Now, since I just said you can return to a hub, how does the world actually work? As you progress the game, you'll steadily unlock new regions to explore, which have different enemies and humans to see. You've got cities and towns where you'll find side quests to complete and general humans to interact with. Whereas in combat areas, it's a lot more tight corridors and connected areas without much room for exploration. There are a lot of secret items in the world to pick up, but they're not hidden too well. This is far from an open world game. This is kind of how these guys have always done their levels though. Minimal exploration, where all areas serve some kind of purpose. Each region will have various sub-areas you can travel to at any time, unless you're in like a special story mission or in mid-combat. Next though, the shop, which has 2 very important mechanics you don't want to miss. Yes, you can buy and sell things at the shop, but after mission 3, you'll unlock the exchange tab, which also leads to weapon upgrades. When you complete various story milestones, the shop supplies will increase and you'll see new items you can get your hands on. One of these is the exchange feature, which allows you to swap data items you'll be finding all over the world for for important items. In fact, in many cases, you can't get important items anywhere else. You have to exchange for them. So don't make the mistake of selling your data items before you actually unlock the exchange tab. You will need them. I almost made that mistake. Here I'm able to get myself my first weapon upgrades, going from a +0 to a +1 and so on. We can also upgrade companion weapons in the same way. So make sure you're grabbing data around the levels whenever you see white items on the ground. You can also exchange for cosmetic items like these amazing bunny ears that I got for the whole squad. Bad buns for life. But if you're looking to exchange something but you don't quite have what you need for it yet, you can wishlist up to 10 items to keep track of what you need and when you've got it. Alright, so that's a lot of stuff to do with in-game, what I've learned playing the game. There's just a couple things I want to mention at the end here. Firstly, interestingly, there's going to be an anime releasing for the main story of the world and the two main characters, which is coming out very soon after release, July 1st. And this reminds me of the whole God Eater game series and of course the anime. I originally watched the God Eater anime before ever playing the games, which led me to be kind of interested in seeing what the games were like. So with that, I think it's really cool that Scarlet Nexus is doing something similar here, almost like a way to advertise one another. The world and characters are set up pretty well, and I've enjoyed the story so far in game, but we'll have to see if an anime version delivers. But lastly, the last thing I want to talk about is a very limited time thing. You can actually try the game for free right now if you're fast. There's a demo currently on Xbox and PlayStation. However, that demo is being removed very soon, on June 27th. So you need to get on this fast if you want to try the game for free before this demo is gone. Unfortunately, as you might be wondering, there isn't a PC demo. In general, I think demos are a great way to give players a way to try a game without committing to a full price, which lets them feel a bit more secure in their purchases. I think it's a shame this one is so short. I don't really think there's anything wrong with just having something like that up for your game after its release. But there you have it. 10 or more, like way more than that, things to know about Scarlet Nexus after my early hands-on with the game. I hope this information was interesting and does help you in your own playthroughs. But like I said, I've been really impressed with the game. It just feels really good. And in a way, it actually reminds me of Nier of all things. I do think the game does a good job of teaching you all of these many aspects, but it is a lot at once. And there's also a lot that you're not told about, like weapon upgrading, which is really important. Either way, I'll have more Scarlet Nexus content coming on the channel over the next period, so look out for that. But until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.